people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
We'll start with this, an update on what's supposed to be the Mikaela Mayer versus Lauren Price fight. Mikaela Mayer took to her social media and stated, I feel for Lauren Price because she's obviously not included in the negotiation process. I believe she wants the fight, but unfortunately her team negotiated a whole deal for her behind her back. Hopefully she will demand more transparency from her team in the future. We'll get the undisputed fight done eventually, but she has to get involved and hold her team accountable. Where did things go wrong between Mikaela and Lauren? Who knows? Boxer still hasn't announced who their new broadcast partner is going to be, and I would assume that if there's a fight between Mikaela and Lauren, it would happen under the Boxer banner, not the Top Rank banner, because I hardly think Boxer would outsource one of their prized stallions. And don't forget, Top Rank's between broadcasters too. So right now is hardly the ideal time to make a fight between them when their respective promoters have other things going on. One of Mikaela's other options, her old buddy, Alicia Baumgardner, who took to her social media and said, paid and pretty, to which Mikaela responded, pretty, I'll give you that. Paid, since nobody stripped me of my belts after popping hotter than any boxer ever, unjuice sputed. Highlighting Alicia Baumgardner's anti-doping fiasco from over a year ago, on paper, Alicia settled the matter, but people still bring it up periodically to take shots at her. Irrespective of what the Michigan Unarmed Combat Commission did or didn't do, they didn't penalize Alicia, and she was never actually suspended for it. But that doesn't stop people from using that situation to take shots at her. Another potential option for young Mikaela, Chantel Cameron. Somebody made the recommendation that Mikaela and Chantel should fight. To which Mikaela responded, I actually really like Chantel, so not sure how exciting the build-up would be, but we would make up for it in the ring. Both have the go-forward styles, both hate the taste of defeat, both hungry and down, old school. It'll happen eventually, I think, at Chantel Cameron. To which Chantel responded, and you would own me with the trash talk. I couldn't even compete with you in that department, to which Mikaela responded, honestly, it wouldn't matter what you say, because I don't understand you anyway. Let's double back a bit to what's supposed to be the Lauren Price fight. I don't know when we can expect to see that fight happen, but I don't get the sense that it happens this year. I don't. Not until we know more about Boxer's broadcast situation. I would not be surprised if this year comes and goes and that fight doesn't happen. A Baumgardner rematch. There is still an audience for that fight. Still have an appetite for it. A rematch between the two, as their initial meeting was closely contested, and Alicia won. I'm not debating that, but the fight was tight enough that a rematch is warranted. They're separated by a lot of weight now. Alicia's still down there at 130. Mikaela's up there at 147. And Mikaela looked better in her last fight than Alicia did in hers. Mikaela looked sensational in the rematch with Sandy Ryan, whereas Alicia was less than spectacular against Jennifer Miranda. I think it's about time that Alicia Baumgardner move up to 135, 140, maybe even 147, because there are no big-name fights to be made at 130 anymore. All the big names that were there have moved on, Mikaela Mayer included. On the premise that there is a rematch between them at 147, where Mikaela currently reigns as WBO champion, that weight favors Mikaela, because obviously she has more time and more experience there than Alicia does, and Mikaela's run of form. She's been looking good. I wouldn't be surprised if Mikaela Mayer won a second fight, won a rematch with Alicia Baumgardner. I wouldn't be surprised if they turned that into a trilogy.
I wouldn't be surprised.
There is also potential for a Chantel-Cameron fight in the not-so-distant future because there's not as much weight between them. Chantel's at 140, Mikaela's at 147. Chantel still has her heart set on a Taylor trilogy, but I don't know that's going to happen. And if it doesn't, moving up and fighting Mikaela is an option. I think that's a fight that MVP could get behind. And if push comes to shove and Mikaela has to cross the street to do it, I think she would.
MVP is paying women boxers the best money right now to fight on the biggest stage. They're in bed with DAZN, they're in bed with Netflix, lots of opportunity there. So if Mikaela has to cross the street from Top Rank over to MVP to do it, I think she will, and I like her chances.
Against Chantel?
Chantel didn't really blow me away with her fight against Jessica Kamara. She won. She definitely won, but she wasn't as physically strong as I expected her to be. Not as devastating, not as damaging. And the whole last year, she had a couple of nothing fights, keep busy fights. It just feels like she hasn't looked dynamic in a while. Whereas Mikaela, against Natasha Jonas, against Sandy Ryan 2 times, she looked great.
Slight edge to the champion, that if the fight happens at 147 for Mikaela's WBO title, I give her a slight edge over Chantel. And we'll see if that fight happens in the absence of the Lauren Price fight. Over to the bombshell news that broke yesterday. Turki LL Sheik boxing pay-per-view is over.
Oh my gosh.
Turki LL Sheik has revealed that pay-per-view will come to an end for Riyadh season and the ring card events on DAZN. Turki LL Sheik confirmed the news following a meeting with DAZN CEO Shay Segev. The policy will begin on November 22nd, which is headlined by David Benavidez and Anthony Yard. The news brings into life DAZN's vision, which was based on the premise that pay-per-view is dead. That was their initial sales pitch. However, once DAZN came into the market, it became clear that boxing fans had to pay additional pay-per-view costs on top of their subscription. Why?
Because while DAZN didn't want to do pay-per-views, not at first, they were competing with platforms that were.
The PBC was doing pay-per-views on 2 platforms at the time, on Fox, on Showtime, and to a lesser extent, so was Top Rank.
DAZN had to try to compete with that.
After the Canelo versus Saunders unification match, the people at DAZN saw Canelo migrate over to the PBC, who could provide him with pay-per-view revenue.
That additional arm.
For the Caleb Plant fight, the massive purses fighters demand, which are funded by pay-per-view sales.
So eventually, DAZN changed their stance and achieved pay-per-view functionality.
Started doing pay-per-views of their own. However, the introduction of Saudi Arabia into boxing has changed that. They have provided fighters with fixed purses without the need to factor in pay-per-view sales, which was evident in the first Tyson Fury versus Alexander Usyk fight.
I don't understand.
With a pay-per-view, the hope is that as expensive as a fight is to put on based on the fighter's financial demands, hopefully it will pay for itself with the money that it generates. But that's not the case with Turkey shows because they're not relying on pay-per-view sales to pay the fighters. They've got so much money, they're not worried about the pay-per-view sales.
The official word from His Excellency is we have a big vision to grow boxing and decided no more pay-per-view. Starting with our Ring Magazine show in November, all Riyadh season and ring events will be free to DAZN subscribers. The pay-per-view model has damaged boxing and we will no longer support it. We are with the fight fans, LL Sheik said.
Now for the implications.
The move has several benefits for fight fans. It will lead to an increase in the casual fan base who are more likely to watch boxing if they don't need to pay extra. The crossover fight between Jake Paul and Mike Tyson was evidence of that. While the fight failed to live up to the hype, it became the most streamed boxing event of all time when Netflix aired their first boxing fight. The venture also reduces the problem with piracy. The pay-per-view costs for the biggest fights have been priced anywhere in between $70 to $100 before the Saudis came into boxing. That has led to a rise in piracy, which hurts fighters who lose out on pay-per-view income.
If there are several pay-per-views coming up in a month, fans may have to miss out on certain fights, as the pricing is no longer sustainable. There is also a predictable monthly cost, which will benefit fans. It provides fans with a detailed schedule of upcoming boxing matches at a flat monthly rate, allowing fans to plan their boxing schedules. That also increases the chances of creating a fair global price. Pay-per-view prices differ based on country and region that people live in. The UK has historically had cheaper pay-per-view prices than those in the United States, which has resulted in fans being unhappy. Fans had plenty to say about the new move. In Turki's short time in the sport of boxing, he must have realized what I've been talking about all this time here on this channel, seeing it for himself, or maybe he heard about it on this channel, since no other content creator talks about the evils of pay-per-view as much as this one. Hell, some channels advocate for more pay-per-views while running spin for the PBC that's been doing pay-per-views almost exclusively. Nobody in the United States the last 5 years has been putting on more pay-per-views than them.
It's been longer than 5 years. They were doing pay-per-views on Fox. They were doing pay-per-views on Showtime simultaneously. Now, they're doing pay-per-views almost exclusively on Amazon.
So what's so bad about pay-per-view?
Nothing in moderation, but people have a bad habit of overdoing it. Previous eras of boxing where pay-per-view used to be only for the biggest of the big fights, now every boxer, literally every boxer with 2 gloves and a gum shield thinks they belong on pay-per-view, when you guys don't dictate to the market what belongs on pay-per-view. The market dictates what belongs on pay-per-view.
We do.
It's been a slow burn. Boxing's audience has progressively shrunk over the years because of boxing's move over to premium cable networks. That's one paywall. Tack on pay-per-view, that's another one.
That's another cover charge, and as you can imagine, everybody doesn't want to have to pay extra to see a good boxing match. Sports are at their best when they are most accessible to the common man. Sports are not intended to be luxury items.
They're bigger when everybody can tune in, when everybody can watch.
Oversaturation of the pay-per-view market has a direct correlation with boxing's decline in this country and why it's moved to the background of the collective consciousness, the background of the sporting world. More people in America watch football, basketball, baseball than they watch boxing because boxing is too goddamn hard to get to.
Too expensive.
They are not as familiar with the fighters as they used to be several decades ago because those fighters are tucked away behind paywall after paywall, which, in effect, places a cap on how much celebrity a fighter can amass when a lot of the time Americans don't know who they are, even when they're decorated, even when they're good.
Pay-per-view in and of itself puts a cap on how many eyes you can get on a fight. Pay-per-views, they're really not for the broadcaster, you know. The ones who benefit the most from a pay-per-view are the boxing people, not the broadcasters. What the broadcasters want is sustained viewership over the life of a deal.
A regular schedule of fights throughout the calendar year that draws eyes to their platform throughout the calendar year, whereas a pay-per-view
Pay-per-view's really for the boxing people to make a little extra money. If they want more than the broadcaster is willing to kick out, the broadcaster will give them a nominal guarantee and they can get the rest on the pay-per-view if people buy it. But what happens if people don't buy it?
profile of the fighters suffers, profile of the fight. And what happens if this keeps happening with pay-per-view after pay-per-view after pay-per-view as the boxing people inundate the market with pay-per-views to satisfy their own overblown financial demands? What happens?
You're seeing what happens. The profile of boxing, it fades into the background.
For major broadcasters, boxing's going to seem like too unstable an investment, so they'll start pulling out. The profiles of the athletes, that's going to suffer. It used to be before a boxer could walk down the street and have the fans mob him. Now, most of the time, people don't know who these boxers are.
Talking about America.
And so it would seem that His Excellency got the memo. More pay-per-views is not the answer. Now, I don't think that pay-per-view is ever going to fully go away.
There's a time and a place to where the model still works, but it's not for every guy, and it's not for every fight. You have to scale that back. Scale it back significantly, because boxing as a sport, and sports in a very general sense, are bigger when they are more accessible.
You think is watching this stuff? Millionaires? Billionaires? These are blue-collar workers. These are common folk.
Where does Carlos Adames fall in these plans? It looks like him and Janibek want to fight for a 3-belt unification. Are you interested in that fight?
I want to tell you something. He wastes my time and he wastes the chance. I give him good, generous offer, and after that, he stay 4 or 5 days, doesn't answer, and going with small details, you cannot understand it. For that, I take the offers. They was part of the night of the champion. And Janibek doesn't have any problem in this. Adames is the problem.
It's not at all surprising to hear that Carlos Adames is the one sandbagging it, and he's the problem. Because all the effort to unify this division has come from Janibek and he's already a unified champion now, so that when Turki says that Carlos was giving him the cold shoulder, wouldn't respond for 5 days.
I'm not surprised. He's ducking Janibek.
Ever since he got that WBC title. Before that, when he didn't have a belt of his own, he was starving for a title fight. But now that he has a title of his own, he doesn't want to risk it.
Not with Janibek.
They've been going back and forth with each other for what feels like 2.5 years before and after Carlos became WBC champion. But now that he is, he's being very careful. And I saw a recent image of him uploaded to his social media where it's very obvious this guy's not in the gym. He's not training for a fight. He's got to be at least 175, 180 pounds, maybe more. He's big. So now you have to wonder, what is the end game for Carlos Adames? What's the plan here? Because it's not like the PBC has an abundance of options for him. They don't. Or an abundance of fight dates. While Arislandi Lara, the WBA champion, is over there, they're not interested in making that fight because that fight doesn't make them any money.
You know what Turkey should do? You're not having any luck with Carlos? Hit up Lara, the aging WBA champion who needs one more big fight before he can bow out. That is, if he hasn't hit him up already.
And Carlos?
Carlos Adames is happy wasting time that he doesn't actually have. How much longer will he be able to keep making 160? How much longer before he's ordered to fight someone that maybe he doesn't want to fight by the World Boxing Council?
So maybe he had a not-so-nice experience in the Hamza Shiraz fight that was scored a draw, where many people thought Carlos should have won. But in the end, you weren't robbed of your title. You're still a champion now, and this is pretty much your only opportunity to make money, real money, as a champion.
Beggars can't be choosers. You turn down an opportunity like this one to do what? You are trying Turki LL Sheik's patience, and offers like these are not going to be around forever.
You want to sit around doing nothing, nursing that title and holding it hostage? Be my guest. But it's not going to make you any money.
Screwing the pooch here.